All right, I'm going to give you some answers on this worksheet that you've already done. And if you have done it, you will be getting it back today. You can correct anything wrong on here, and you get to use this on the test on Friday. If you haven't done it, you will receive a 0. All right, number 1. Well, what impact did the Tang and Song dynasties have on the following areas of Chinese society? Number 1, transportation. Right here. Expanded what they did, they expanded the networks of roads and canals begun by the Sui dynasty, Sui dynasty. Number 2, on government, made the central government much stronger. It revived and expanded the civil service. They lowered taxes, gave some wealthy landlords, they took some of the wealthy landlords' land and gave it to the peasants, and they opened schools. Number 3, foreign trade. They definitely encouraged many overland foreign trade with other areas, expanded the sea trade across the Indian Ocean, the Persian Gulf, and along the African coast. They established trading colonies. When they established these things, it resulted in the introduction of tea, like the tea you drink, new religions. These religions included Buddhism, Islam, and some eastern parts of Christianity. Number 4, agriculture. What they did, they improved the cultivation, the harvesting, and the distribution of rice. They were able to figure out how to grow it on many different areas. Number 5, science and technology, developed movable type, gunpowder, and magnetic compass. Huge right there, the magnetic compass is huge. Number 6, art. They nurtured works of artists. Sorry, drink of coffee. They nurtured works of many artists. They produced a lot of great poetry and a lot of great paintings. Okay, next one. What changes did the two dynasties bring about for the following groups? The gentries, number 7. What they did, it created this elite upper class where their status was based on education and position in the civil service. Civil service, if you remember, is government work, basically. Today, you could think of mailman as a civil service person. Okay, so their status, the eliteness, was based on their education and their position in the civil service, not how much land they owned. Many did become wealthy enough to own land, but they weren't going to buy land because that wasn't part of their status symbol. Number 8, the middle class. What happened here, it made possible, now they have social mobility. They have the rise of the middle class through economic opportunities. They have many different economic opportunities, being either a merchant, a shopkeeper, an artisan, some minor officials in the civil services. So a lot of social movement. They were able to expand, into other classes. Number 9, women, their status declined, especially in the upper classes in the cities, and also foot binding was introduced. If it's a horrible practice. I'm not going to go over it, but if you want to look it up, you can. All right, next worksheet. And hang on. You know what? Excuse me. This is not the next one yet, but we'll be there in a second. Okay, next worksheet, section 2. Number 1, the rise of the Mongols. What was the primary cause of conflict between steppe nomads and settled communities? They had a very hard lifestyle, okay? So steppe nomads had to raid towns and villages. They had to go out and quickly raid these villages, quickly raid these towns, grab everything they could, kill whoever they needed to kill, and then they would leave. But once they left, they would come back to these same areas with their herds because they needed the natural resources for survival. So they would go in, raid, take things they needed, go back to the communities, then bring their herds to the lands that the herds needed for grazing. That's called pastoral nomads, meaning they just nomadically travel with their herds. All right, number 2, how was Genghis Khan able to unite the nomadic Mongols? He basically terrorized everybody. He terrorized all his rivals, defeated all his rivals one by one, was able to finally unite them after all the terror that he presented to them. Number 3, what traits enabled Genghis Khan to conquer most of Asia? Great organizer, brilliant organizer, probably one of the greatest military strategists of all time. People still study him today as far as military is concerned. He was a huge, very cruel terrorist, chopping heads off. I'm just going to be brutally honest, chopping heads off, all kinds of things like that. Any enemy he conquered, he would take their weapons, modify them, make them better for his soldiers, and kill his other enemies. Number 4, the Khiantes. Into what 4 Khiantes did the successors of Genghis Khan divide the Mongol Empire? That was also on Crash Course. You had the Great Khan, which was in China, the Khiante of Jagatai, which was in Central Asia, I think it's Il-Khiante, which is Persia basically, and the Khiante of the Golden Horde, which is in Russia. Largest empire the world has ever known, bar none. Largest empire, land empire the world has ever known. Number 5, how did the Mongols rule? First, they ruled very brutally, destroying land, destroying irrigation systems, wiping out entire populations of towns. Later, they were still brutal, but they started to adopt different things of the cultures that they conquered. They created much stability in the areas that they conquered. Law and order was finally, established throughout all of Eurasia, which is Europe and Asia combined. Number 6, how did the cultural differences among the Khiantes eventually affect the empire? Basically, all the different cultures helped to split up the empire. There was just not enough continuity. Number 7, what was Mongol peace? It was about the mid-1200s to the mid-1300s. The Mongols established stability and law throughout much of Eurasia. Number 8, how did the peace affect trade and cultural interaction? It definitely made travel and trade safer. People were able to easily travel. They weren't worried about getting things stolen. It created a exchange of goods and ideas across Asia and Europe. Remember what I always say, the trade, not only, you exchange goods, you exchange ideas. Another sip of coffee. Last worksheet, we're going to do this today. You're more than welcome to take these and answer them, use them to help you, because you'll get to use these on the test. I'm going to let you use all 3 of these on the test. Number 1, section 3, we are talking about Kublai Khan, some more Mongol rule, Great Khan, which is basically the Mongol rule in China, one of the 4, Khiantes, which is the Great Khan. Number 1, who was Kublai Khan? Who was Marco Polo? Kublai Khan was the grandson of Genghis Khan. He is the Great Khan, and he's the one who united China for the first time in over 300 years. Marco Polo was a Venetian guy from Venice. He was a trader who traveled to China, visited Kublai Khan's court, and then served in his court for 17 years. Number 2, when did the Mongols gain control of all of China? 1279 is the year. Next part of number 2, when did Kublai Khan rule? From 1260 to 1294. Number 3, where did Kublai Khan build palaces? Chengdu and modern-day Beijing, and all the way from Mongolia to China, he built several palaces. Second part. Where did Kublai Khan move the capital of his empire? That's the second part. I'm sorry. He moved it from Mongolia to China. The first part of that, where did Kublai Khan build palaces? In Chengdu and modern-day Beijing. All right, number 4. How did the Mongol rulers treat the Chinese subjects? They kept their Mongol identity. They tolerated their Chinese culture. And when I say they kept their Mongol identity, the Mongol rulers kept their identity, but they allowed the Chinese culture, to maintain their identity. They kept Chinese officials and local governments. Excuse me. And next part, how did Kublai Khan expand foreign trade? He made several caravan routes across Asia very safe. Caravans are the people that, go back and forth with all the goods of trade. And he established many mail routes to link China with India and Persia. Trade was improved greatly and invited foreign merchants to visit China, like other areas of the world. Number 5, why did the Mongols give most high government posts to foreigners? Very interesting. They believed that foreigners were more trustworthy than any Chinese government official. Now, they did allow some Chinese government officials, but not in the higher up, parts of the government. They felt that the foreigners were more trustworthy, and since they had no local loyalty to any, local Chinese people. Why were the Mongols unable to conquer Japan? They did want to go conquer Japan. Honestly, a storm destroyed both fleets. A huge storm destroyed both fleets. Why is the Yuan dynasty important in Chinese history? Because it finally united China, expanded the foreign contacts. China was able to, expand their trade. It made a few changes, very few changes to the Chinese culture and system of government, so it kept Chinese ideas going. 6, what was brought about the fall of the dynasty, or what brought about the fall of the Yuan dynasty? Several military defeats, very high luxury lifestyle, the heavy taxes, heavy spending. A lot of people started to get upset over all this, so a lot of civil discontent. The government started to fall apart a little bit. Many different power struggles among all the Yuan family members. They wanted the power, this family fighting over that family. And the rebellion, finally the rebellion of the population. Take these, make sure yours are correct on your worksheets, and you get to use them on Friday for the test. Thank you.